here to let people know that when Jaime and I have talked about with each other and kind of pinged each other back and forth on social media for quite some time. And I think what I like most about Jaime is that I think she's one of those few people before all the COVID came out was actually a voice of saneness in the world. And she was just putting a lot of content out on video, on LinkedIn and other spaces. Just, you know, I think I'm always looking for people who are saying things that actually matter. And I just felt a lot of the stuff that you were putting out there, some of it was content with the previous brand, but some of it was just you talking sense to people. And I just thought that it would be a great opportunity to get you to be part of this summit. Appreciate the fact that you've been willing to shift over to virtual and also adjust the subject matter. And so today, you're going to be talking to us about leading people through uncertainty and kind of helping people understand kind of the talent team and overall strategies of, and I loved our earlier discussion, I hope we get to touch on it, is just because you're a manager doesn't mean you necessarily know how to manage. And you don't necessarily know how to manage in uncertain times either. So with that, I will give the mic to you.
Excellent. And I'm all about pivoting, right? So, and this being a fluid conversation, it's about being real. I do have a deck I was going to walk through, but I also, I just joined, unfortunately I had a lot of meetings earlier in the day, so I just joined about a half an hour ago. But Howard, I'm willing to pivot at any point in this if you want me to drill into something more specific, or talk about a topic that is top of mind for the audience here. Okay, great. So I'm going to just share my screen here. Okay. Oops. All right. We good? Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So thank you for allowing me to be here today and be with you. This is really all about being human. And what Howard was saying is, a lot of the things that I've been out talking about and working with clients about is really all around uncertainty and leading through change and disruption way before this was even happening. So this has been obviously this specific situation that's going on right now, but helping leaders, helping people, helping teams and organizations to move forward and have courage over effort in how they're moving from where they are today to where they want to go. And that's a lot of that is disruption. It's very uncomfortable. So we're going to talk about how do you keep it real when things are really uncertain. How do you lead through times of uncertainty? So in terms of keeping it real, this is what our keeping it real agenda is for today. So I want to talk first a little bit about where everybody is right now and how they're feeling, and kind of step into that. The next thing we're going to talk about why your leadership matters today more than ever. And I know it's like, of course, Jaime, duh, like, of course it matters, but I really want to talk more specifically about why it matters in detail. What we're all feeling, sort of like grounding us in what we're feeling right now and what our people are feeling right now. Then we're going to go into which leaders are going to win as we move through this, because there's going to be a shift. And then I'm going to walk through some strategies on how to keep it real and start today with, winning in this time of uncertainty. Okay, so my first question for you, I want to everybody take a deep breath. I'm taking a deep breath. I don't know if you guys can see me. Can you guys see me on the side? Oh, you can.
Yes.
Okay. All right. take a deep breath, and I want you to really think about, how does it feel to be led by you right now? How does it feel? And if you don't have a team, I want to know, like, what do you want to feel from your leaders right now? I want you to write it down, because you might not have an answer for it right this moment, but I really want you to orient on that, because how the people that you lead feel is going to be critical to everything that you do. This is about connection. It's not about a title. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being there for people. And I want to share a little bit, just a little personal example of this, about just being there for people right now. So I have, my sister is a cardiac ICU nurse, and she's in Boston. And she's working with, helping out with the patients that have COVID. She actually also came down to Texas to help out after Harvey. So speaking about being in the moment, she's a leader in my book, right? She's out there, she's saving people's lives every single day, but also knowing that leaders need help at different times as well. I got a FaceTime call from her last night around 11:30, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm tired, I don't want to pick up. But I said, you know what, I'm going to pick up because she's reaching out to me. And she was at work, and I picked up, and I realized that it was just a moment that she had between, like, working through patients, that she just wanted to connect with someone. She just, when I got on the phone, like got on the FaceTime with her, it's like she just wanted to look at me and see me, because I knew that she was in chaos and there was a lot of stuff going on, but that connection, we didn't talk about much. It was like 30 seconds, but I was there and I picked up the phone. And so I want you to think about, with your people around you, the people that you lead, the people in your community, the people in your family, how are you being there for them, even if it's just for a moment in time? Okay. So this guy, what I want you to get out of today is how to not be this guy or girl. So this is a typical, we're in a situation where we're behind our desk, whether you've been a virtual operating environment or whatever, it's very easy to be disconnected when you are behind the desk, behind the email. So make sure that what you're doing, I'm sure you guys talked about it earlier today quite a bit, but like, make sure you use every moment you can to do a video. Initiate the video. Don't just look at all the dots. It's really powerful to be able to look somebody in the eyes and really rethink. I was talking to a leader yesterday, and I'll give you this example, I was helping him with his communication out to his team, because he's concerned that a lot of them aren't being productive. And so he had drafted this email with all of his concerns in it and was going to send it out, and was smart enough to say, hey, Jamie, could you take a look at this? And I looked at it and I thought, well, that's one way to either annoy, scare, piss off a bunch of people, by putting it in an email, because there's no context. So I want you to make sure, before you send anything out into email, really be thoughtful about, is this something that I can pick up the phone and call somebody individually? Does it, can it be done through a video conference? And really be thoughtful about how you're putting your communication out right now. And really ever, right? But right now, especially, people can have all kinds of stories in their heads about what's happening. They need to hear your voice and your tone. And that's super, super critical. So don't be that guy or girl. Okay, so what I'm going to shift into is, all of you, I'm sure, depending upon, how long you've been in the workforce, or you're new, just soon graduating, you're going to remember, and you will remember throughout your life, there's always going to be two types of leaders that will stick in your mind during the hard times. And they sit in two different categories. These are the only people you remember. These are the people that were helpful to you and the people that were hurtful to you. And my question is, again, and you can write this down, is if we fast forward to a year from now, how are your people going to remember you? Are you going to be in the helpful bucket or in the hurtful? So when we think about how we're showing up every day, and how is that communication that you're putting out, to your people, is it helping and hurting? Do you even know? Have you asked the question? Are you looking for feedback? Because those moments, like when I talk about brand, so I talk about these conversations for making money or losing money. So the helpful conversation is making you money in the long term and maybe short term. The hurtful is losing you money. It's also your brand as leader. And so when we think back to these examples, they literally help shift how we think about how we lead, right? I can think back to the leaders that I've had that were good and bad, and I've learned so much from them. And one of the examples I'll share, because who you're in the trenches with today is going to be people that you've gone through something with, and it's always going to be in your mind. And how you guys lift each other up right now is super, super important. And I'll share a story about it that's personal to me that I use as part of, how I lead based off of an experience I had when I was just new out of school. I was working in New York City and 9/11 happened. And I remember that morning vividly. And I remember, and still keep in touch with people that I was in that situation with on 9/11. And I remember vividly my boss. And my boss, I didn't know what to do. We were trying to decide whether we should leave or stay. And I remember she didn't have the answers either, right? She's the leader, but she didn't have the answers. We were in an uncertain time. We didn't know the right thing to do, but we collectively decided that we were going to move forward, and we were going to move forward, and we were going to leave and try to leave the city. And we did that, and we did that together. And that was a leadership move and a moment in time in crisis that sticks with me. And I think when I think about that, this is, again, it's not about you guys. It's not about us as leaders having the answers and having it figured out. It's about how we're showing up and we're working through it together. So I want you to think about one of the things, this is tried and true in with most everybody that I work with when they're in times of transition. You're going to be in one of these three buckets. You're going to be, right now, you're going to either be falling back, right? You're either going to be frozen or you're going to be focused forward. And you're probably sitting in one of the three, or maybe in different parts of your life, you're going to be sitting in one of the three. And I actually am my son's basketball coach. So the way I like to describe this in a basketball term is you're either on your heels, you're being flat-footed, or you're on your toes. And all of these, if you think about where you are right now, right? So maybe think about that. Be truthful to yourself. You're sitting in one of these buckets. We all want to say we're focusing forward, but the reality is we're all not. And all of these buckets are okay. If you're in one of these, if you're in, the falling back and it's okay. It's okay if you are. There's all kinds of things that are happening right now. And the first step is noticing that that's where you are. Because if you don't notice, you can't take action. Okay? So my ask for you is to notice where you are. And if you're falling back, ask for help. Talk to somebody. If you're frozen, think about what you would need to make that shift forward. And if you're focusing forward right now, think about who else you can bring with you and help them move forward. This is probably one of my favorite slides to use, and I've used this in multiple leadership workshops I've done with sales teams, sales leaders, and it is undeniably, how we respond emotionally. All people, all humans, I don't care how wealthy you are, how, if you're a CEO or you're a BDR, it doesn't matter. We all have the same emotions, and we go through change in a variety of these same ways. So it's super important to understand that if you've moved from, maybe you're in the denial or in the shock stage, and then you've moved over to acceptance, and that's great. But you also have to acknowledge the fact that your team, people on your team, are in different stages of this cycle. And this is a great slide to use with your team to sort of talk about, where are you right now? And one of the things that is frustrating and exciting about understanding this change cycle is that if you had moved to acceptance, something might happen tomorrow that puts you back in shock. And the reality is, this is life, and this is change, and this is real. This is how it works. This is how we feel. And this is how we go through the days when we're in uncertainty. And to know, the silver lining in this is to know that it is actually making you stronger. It is building your resilience. This is like building a muscle. We are getting stronger in the uncertainty. Okay. So here is the good news. I have good news. And I can't hear anybody laughing, so I'm just going to laugh at myself. So the good news is that there will be new leaders that emerge as part of this, of what we're going through right now. There will be new leaders that step up. And those new leaders are going to be the real leaders, the ones that are transparent, the ones that speak the truth, and the ones that can build trust. So I want you to realize this, that, leadership is not a title. Leadership is who is coming along on the journey with you. Who are you inspiring? Who are you lifting? Who's listening? Who are you supporting? The leader, we always have heard this before, and it's really true, is the leader is the person who has the people. So how are you thinking about the way you're communicating with transparency and openness? The thing I talk to salespeople all the time who are telling me about, their leaders that don't communicate, and they're only right now. I mean, the number of phone calls I've had this week just from people who their leaders are just completely not talking about, anything that's going on other than stay with the business. And, they've got family members that are sick, and, it's your ability to be real and be in the moment and connected with your people is the foundation of leadership. So I want you to really think about how you're connecting with your people every single day to build that trust, which starts with the transparency. Did I have a question?
I want to ask you a little bit of a question, because I hear what you're saying, and I'm trying to think about the leader who feels the pressure of the number.
Yep.
Feels maybe they've heard about the budget cut, or they've heard about the things that are outside their control that are coming in. How do they I hear the words, but I'm feeling for some of our colleagues who are sitting there saying, I don't know what to do. I mean, I do and I don't. I hear what you're saying, but how do I do that? How do I go about doing that? And it sounds like, I know that I didn't know you lived through 9/11, so that's fascinating. And then you lived through the economic downturn. How did you see people do that? Can you give us maybe a little bit more concrete examples around that?
Well, sure. I mean, the number is always going to be there, right?
Sure.
So, it doesn't go away, but the conditions. So you think about how we are motivated, motivated by fear. We might move forward and, in produce something short term, but the ability to really connect with a person, when there is that, that pressure, to be able to understand what, as the leader, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need from me, to help you move forward? One of the most frustrating things for salespeople is when a leader's like, demanding of this, this, and this, and this. And then the boss says, well, let me know if there's anything I can do to help, but there really is no help. So how can you actually dig in, get your hands dirty, and help to actually move things forward? Connection. You're connecting with your people and helping to move, get in more involved in the deals and move things forward. Is that helpful, or is that
Yeah, I think so. I think this may come back to that conversation we had before about maybe to a degree, just because you are a great producer doesn't mean you're ready to lead. And this is definitely an opportunity for people to maybe they've been able to pull off performance up till now, because they've been lucky. They haven't had to lead, but this is a moment where people really have to be able to develop leadership versus management, right?
Absolutely. And this is not, the things I'm talking about is not rocket science. This is, how do you connect and understand what motivates a person? Now, in normal times, there are a variety of things, but in this moment of realizing your goal as the leader is to help your people feel safe, but also to keep them productive, right? But you can't do that if you don't know how to connect with them. So what I'm talking about is like, how are you able to really connect on a human level by asking questions about how are you doing, sharing maybe where you're struggling as a leader, that you haven't figured it out yet, that we're in this together. But seeing that, it makes it more balanced than it's like just throwing stuff over the wall at someone.
So earlier today, John Barrows was talking to us about the three groups that we're running into right now in sales organizations. And maybe this would help from a contextual standpoint with what you've got on the screen right now. There's the group with basically the hotel and travel leisure sector, which means, they're completely shutting down. They're having to do layoffs. Their whole idea of continuity is just unknown, right? They don't know what they're going to do, and they've got to just basically, it's trying to figure out what is the survival mode moving forward. Then there's the other side of the equation, which is like video, right? If you work for Zoom right now, you've moved from selling to order taking, or if you're in the respiratory business or anything around medical supply business, you're doing order taking and manufacturing and scaling. So those are the two extremes. And then John said, then there's everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the slide you're providing, how would you advise a leader in each of those settings for what you just described?
I'm
trying to make you think at the end of a day.
Yeah. Well, I think, when I look at the buckets, like if I go back to, I'm always looking at how do you separate. One of the things that I've noticed right now, it's like, half of the world is so incredibly busy. It's like, I'm like running around like crazy, helping clients and doing, like, my days are so full. And then I've got other people that just, I've got like my family here is like, well, when do you want to go out for a walk? It's like, you've got the two extremes of super busy people right now and people who don't have have nothing to do.
Right.
With the order taking, in the manufacturing business, I think the advice I would give is to just make sure that if you're the leader, like, you're checking in with your people to make sure that they're okay, because they're overworked. They are, they're stretching in different ways that they've never had to before. Keeping people, this is one of the hardest things is like, you have got to take care of yourself, because the stress and the worry, it definitely increases your ability to get sick. It lowers your immune system, right? When you're worried and overtired and stressed. So, you know, again, I've always, you know, met people where they are, try to check in and make sure that they are, like, where do they, like, connecting with them and thinking, okay, helping them thinking about their thinking. What do they think is the best next thing to do? Because I can't control how people feel, right? All I can do is try to connect and help to open them up to, you know, the idea of, okay, what's next? Am I in one of those three buckets? Am I falling back? Am I frozen, or am I moving forward? And helping them to rethink about their thinking.
Thank you. I think that was very helpful.
Keep me on my toes. All right, can I just get a time check? I just want to make sure, because I wanted to leave time for questions, but I think I'm.
You have 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. And if there is questions, I mean, I'm certainly, I can ask that. I can go to that now too, if people do have questions. All right. So this is, again, about being real. I've a lot of people use the term authentic, and I'm seeing you guys roll your eyes. Authentic, empathy. I tend to not use those words because I think they have a lot of background and sort of history to them. So this is really just about being real. Like, it is super, super simple, but hard for a lot of leaders to do. And one of the things that I work with a number of leaders on is self-awareness, is how are they showing up? Because often I often say we can't see the picture when we're in the frame. So how are we showing up for people? How do our people feel that we're leading? That first question that I asked, do you even know? And one of the things I will offer for people who reach out to me on LinkedIn, I don't have time to get into it today, but I use Predictive Index. I'm a certified Predictive Index partner. So it's all about understanding your strengths, your natural strengths, and how do you lead with them. So if any of you are interested to take that, you can send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll send it to you and walk you through the results. But this really is about understanding how people see you. And one of the tricks to this as well, as a leader, is one of the simple ways that I tell people. It's a simple exercise. And if I had been in Dallas, I would have had you guys do this in the audience. But message three people on text that, you know, you've worked with, clients or whatever, and say, you know, you're going through a learning development exercise, and give me the first three words that you would use to describe me. This is a very simple little thing you can do to get some feedback back about how people are seeing you. I have a few other little exercises you could do with your team. Again, if I can certainly send that out after, but really this understanding of how are you showing up, or how are you aware of how you are connecting with or not connecting with your people? Okay, so we're gonna go through these quick. 3 strategies, 3 buckets for keeping it real. You're like, what is this right now, right? I keep you guys on your toes. All right, so keeping yourself real right now. I'm hearing a lot about people feeling like they're not being productive enough, you know, sort of like can't get their shit together. And I think that one of the things you kind of have to like take it down a notch and say, you know what? I got to drop this idea of perfection. This is a first draft. And what do we know about first drafts? They're always garbage, right? Like, they're messy. That's what it is. That's what change is. It's uncertainty. It's about messy and sitting in that uncertainty. And when I mentioned about the leaders that are going to persevere through this, are the ones that are okay with sitting in the uncertainty and being okay in the messiness and figuring it out and iterating. A lot of the work that I do at Slalom is helping companies with their design thinking and with their moving into more of an agile thinking and mindset, and helping them move through these, like the fear of change. So embracing the mess. Here are some ways that you guys can think about how you're checking in. It's about checking in on your mood and your mindset. Like, how is your mood impacting? Remember I showed you guys the chart of how you're feeling? Checking in on where you're feeling and knowing that if you're in a feeling of like a really not a good place, like maybe it's not the best time to, have a team call, or you just have to check yourself and notice where you're at, because how you're communicating out is going to impact how people are receiving you. So the one thing I want to mention on this, these are all pretty self-explanatory, but the most simple thing here to remind you is to connect before you correct. Connect before you correct. Don't criticize. Make sure you're, meeting the person where they are. Connect with them first. This is like, so basic, but the feedback and why I'm doubling down on this one is because a lot of the sales leaders that I work with have said that this is one of the best things that they've had as a reminder for themselves before they jump into sort of their standard playbook. Okay. The next thing I'm going to talk about, lanterns. You're like, what? Lanterns? So the purpose of a lantern, right, is to provide light and to create a path forward within darkness. And so I want you guys to think about, how do you look for the lights around you? Who are the people that are in maybe that third bucket where they're focusing forward, their energy is good, they're, in a place of gratitude? How do you focus on those people and learn from them, but also, how to work with them to help lift others? So there are those people, but you have to look for them. Like we've talked, I'm sure you've all heard this, looking for the helpers, but you're a leader, but you're not alone. There's people want to be helpful. And if you aren't seeing that, I suggest to you to figure out, and this is, I do a lot of conversations around gratitude, a lot of talks and workshops around gratitude, but maybe it's something as simple as like, you can't find the positive right now. Everything's going to shit, right? Well, there's got to be something, maybe it's a practice every night that you find 3 things and you write it down that you're thankful for. It could be, I had a good cup of coffee today. I had a good conversation with X client. Something, but figure out a way to get yourself focused going forward and look for those around you to build that community. Another technique as well is part of, when you are coming at a place of gratitude, you can also see the positive. Remember how I said, connect before you correct? How do you then shift it where if you're seeing somebody on your team that's doing something really positive or their energy is good, how do you give them that positive feedback? Just say, hey, I noticed that you had that really great question on that call the other day. That was awesome. Anything positive that you can add in to your people right now is incredibly valuable. And part of that, if we're thinking about building trust over time, how you see how they're showing up. And then what I've always called it as a verbal hug, but I'm going to call it a virtual hug, is how are you giving like positive pinches for people? How do you, like think about, what you're going to say to them. Shift it. This is a new playbook, people. People want to feel cared about right now, and they want to know that you care. All right. Yes, and. So where we focus again around our language, and if we go back to what I said about in the beginning about every communication that you put out there is either making you money or losing your money. It's building trust, losing trust with people. This is about not saying yes, but yes, and. I want you guys to notice, and now it's going to drive you crazy because I'm going to tell you it, but it's going to, you're now going to notice it. Every time someone needs help with something, notice how many times people say, yes, but the problem is. Yes, that's great, but the problem is. Maybe you've already noticed it before, but I notice it all the time. And so um, the most important thing about this is now it's going to be in your head. It's going to be like the Baby Shark song, right? You're going to be like, you're going to hear it all the time. But instead of, I want you to catch yourself and say yes, but I want you to say yes, and. So when you're working with people right now, your team, a lot of them are feeling helpless, right? And this is again from back where I said in the two camps, you're feeling like you're on your heels or on your toes. People feel helpless. So we want to shift them. And if they want to figure out how to be helpful, how do they get on their toes and be helpful? So I want you to embrace all ideas that they come up with, right? If they say they have an idea of, hey, let's create a Slack channel, for people who want to share ideas on how to deal with having a family in their house while they're trying to work and they've got toddlers. Embrace that. Great. Go run with that. That sounds good. Would that be valuable? Yes. Figure out, and this kind of goes back to what you said, Howard, about sort of people that are in different stages of busyness or not busyness. How do you help them be helpful and tie that into giving back? So embracing your ideas and innovation of your team. This is a time, we're seeing this with a lot of our clients, is that, you know what, even though there's so much disruption, it's somebody, I think, said that before, it's like, this is like the Band-Aid's ripped off, let's do it, right? You're all in disruption anyway. Let's put in the technologies and the new ways of doing things that we've been pushing back for so long. Shift things to more of an open-ended. So when people come to you with a problem, this is a quiet leadership strategy, is when someone comes to you with a problem, help them think about their thinking. So, I've got this problem with this client. Yeah, got it. So what do you think you should do? What do you think is the right thing to do? Instead of giving them the answer, which I know we're so good at giving the answer, this is about empowering them and helping them think about their thinking. So think about that as you're opening up the space of thinking with your people, and that drives the connection. The one other thing I wanted to mention, and then I'm going to open it up. I've got one more slide, but I'm going to open it up for questions, is involve others. One of the strategies, I know not everybody on the call has kids, but I've got them in my house anyway. I've always involved them, even especially now more, but I've always involved them in what I'm doing at work. So the things that I'm doing, helping others, helping companies, like right now, in Connecticut, in Massachusetts, in Boston, helping companies with, getting their call centers up, helping them with, leading virtual leadership sessions. I'm doing all this stuff, and my kids are like, "What are you doing?" So I involve them in it, and I tell them, I explain to them like they're regular people, like, this is what I'm working on, and what do you think people could use right now? What kind of help could people use? And I give them little projects to come back to me with, because it stirs my thinking, right? This is about innovation. You can figure out ways to, bring the communities together. In my team, I have a lot of people who have kids. So the kids are doing art projects right now and sharing them and creating new ways and new ideas and sharing it across each other. Okay. So when we look at the first draft, the lanterns and the yes and, that's our strategy to fly, to move forward. And that's all I have. Went through fast.
Well, that was pretty good. Thank you so much, Jamie. I know obviously it's quite clear that you're in high demand right now, with a lot of clients trying to stay on top of everything that's going on. And I definitely appreciate everything you shared with us, and I think it was very insightful. I know I took a whole page worth of notes to remind myself that I have a lot to work on, and I think different people are having different opportunities to kind of think about how they can be, a good leader in this particular moment. So.
And you know what though, Howard, like this is where I sort of struggled with. I wanted to give you guys some ideas. This is not meant to overwhelm. This is to inform. One nugget, just one thing, right? The book, The One Thing.
Mm-hmm.
like if it's one thing you took from this that you said, hey, look at that chart of emotions, and I have to realize that I'm in one of these emotions during the day, and how am I showing up? That's great. That's it. That's all that matters. If it's the connect before you correct, if there's just one thing in this that's going to help you as a strategy to connect more with your people, then it's a winner.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
And
Thanks, everybody.
we look forward to seeing you down the road. So
Yeah.
I make it out to New York every once in a while. So I'll have to, and if you make it out to Dallas, you make sure you ping me if you have the bandwidth to do so.
We have a big office there, so I definitely will. And for anybody that does want some more, I have some different exercises or different tips for you or for your team. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, or if they want to take that assessment, that self-awareness assessment, it's super interesting. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
All right, thank you.